But all in all, it was a great night. Comedy's cool, but like I still think God was supposed to make me a rapper, bro. Like I just feel like my skirt and are just too good to waste on comedy. I don't know. Somebody call the Migos. I'm ready.
I ain't gon' tell, I ain't gon' tell, I ain't gon' tell. Keep it
on the See the Black People Meeting episode 8. I'm your host, Niles Abston. I hope you had a great Halloween. I know I did. I only saw about 83 racist Halloween costumes, so it's down from last year. We're getting better, guys. We're improving, and that's what it's all about. I know O.J. Simpson, he had a great Halloween. He got to pass out candy to trick-or-treaters at his house. It was a pretty popular spot for Halloween, and he did it all while dressed up as one of America's favorite murderers. I had a pretty good week. I can't complain. I got to perform for my first time at the world-famous Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard here in Hollywood. Probably the coolest thing about it, Crack 'em Up Thursdays, was Marlon Wayans and Dave Chappelle dropping in as special guests and just shutting the room down. It was a great time for everybody, and I really learned a lot, so thank you to the two of you for coming. But not everybody had as good of a week as we did. Tyrese, what's going on, man? America, if you're like me, it's hard to watch a dark-skinned man crying on camera. It's hard. But Denzel, if you're watching, I think I know who you need to cash for Fences too if you need an ugly crier. It seems like every week that I'm losing a white hero of mine. Former LA Dodgers announcer Vin Scully said that he'll never watch the NFL again because he's offended by the NFL anthem protest. Now guys, look, don't generalize. He's not racist. It's okay. His best friend Jackie Robinson is colored. The NFL is cracking down. They've addressed the Washington Redskins fans and said that no racial slur will be tolerated while in the stadium. Because if that racial slur isn't a part of the uniform, the NFL doesn't make any money. Colin Kaepernick is suing the NFL owners on acts of collusion for suspicion of that against him. And I've talked to some legal professionals. Collusion is a hard thing to prove actually happened. So the NFL owners are going to have to turn in their phone records and email records from the last couple of years to use as evidence. So we might not be able to prove that they colluded against Colin, but we will be able to find out how many times they secretly used the N-word this past year. Papa John's has become the official pizza sponsor of the white nationalist movement. And it makes sense. It's not properly seasoned. Papa John, I know you're going through it, man. You need a new marketing team. Obviously, using you as the face of the company to sell pizzas hasn't really worked this year. So if you're tired of your CEO being all up in the videos, all up in the commercials, come to DiGiorno. The University of Hartford in Connecticut is facing a hate crime charge, unfortunately. A white roommate was found poisoning her black roommate. She bragged on social media about rubbing bodily fluids on her black roommate's toothbrush and food. It's just nasty, it's sick, it's gross. This new white millennial racism is just really weird, and I don't like it. It's like a Jordan Peele film came to life in front of our very eyes. I want the old racism back. Oh, okay. Maybe not. I don't think I want any of that back. Sorry. But on a positive note, a Twitter employee on his last day, he shut down Donald Trump's Twitter account. He did what all of America wanted. And of course, when our president actually cares about something, he acts with the quickness. So his Twitter account was back up within 11 minutes. So now all we have to do is figure out how to turn Puerto Rico into an app. Or maybe even healthcare. I don't know. Donald Trump's response to the New York City attacks where 8 people were killed by the truck, he said that it was a terrorist attack by a deranged and sick person. But when it was a white person, he said he needed all the facts. He didn't want to speak too soon. He said, let's move and let's give them our thoughts and our prayers. It's simple. Trump treats white terrorists different from brown terrorists, a lot like America. He didn't want to speak too soon. So why is it never too soon when it's an alleged Muslim attacker? So why, when people are in power, they get to decide what's too soon and what's not, when oftentimes they're part of the reason we have these very acts because they're slow on legislation. And it seems like we can't talk about protest. We can't talk about police brutality. We can't talk about gun violence, sexual harassment. Hell, Larry David is a Jew and couldn't even joke about the Holocaust on SNL without offending people. And I think it's time to start to realize maybe you're not offended, you're just uncomfortable. Because when you do that, you're able to build this privileged bubble around yourself. And most people, that bubble has been burst a long time ago by these very issues that you don't want to talk about and you can blissfully ignore. And that's why we've accepted this whole phrase, I'm not really into politics. Because it's actually code for I'm privileged and I benefit from the system. So why bother talking about it? And if you want to stay comfortable, maybe this isn't the show for you. Turn it off. This is Secret Black People Meeting. I'm your host, Niles Abston. We'll be right back.
It's me, it's Robert. Bob, your son?
I know you're my son, asshole. I just forgot your name.
We're $500 behind our rent.
Hey, one of the nurses told me I could find you.
What are you doing here?
I should be asking you that. Lena Johnson?
I owe money all over this town.
You just gotta give me a few weeks, that's all I'm asking.
And you're stuck here wiping asses for shit money. Literally. Now, I have a plan that could change all that. Pills. Plain old everyday common pills. I'm talking Perk, Xanax, Vicodin, Viagra, you name it, this place has it.
We want you to head up the dick pill department.
A lot of money in dick pills.
Stop calling them dick pills.
Word is, there's some new dealers on my trip not paying their taxes. Fine enough.
All right, welcome back. What you just saw was a trailer for a feature film I shot last year that I wrote, produced, was also an actor in. It's going to be premiering this weekend globally at the Asian Film Center Film Festival in West Bengal, India. So I'm not going to get to see it because I'm broke as hell, so I can't fly out there to see it. But hopefully the people in India check it out and they love it. Like I'm really excited about it. Rashid Stevens, he's another comedian. You guys know him. He directed the movie. I wrote it, produced. It was a really fun time, and it's cool. Like a year later, because this week last year we shot the movie, so it's pretty dope to find out like it's in this big international film festival. So it's like hard work, paid off. Hopefully it's dope. Hopefully we can do something with it. A lot of people that were part of the movie are already doing cool stuff. Like if you're a Shameless fan, this new season 8. One of the little boys in our film is playing Liam in the new season of Shameless on Showtime. So like obviously I'm a little jealous. Like I've been seeing pictures of him on the Warner Brothers lot, chilling and having fun. So I'm just like, hey, he's doing his thing, and he was in my movie. So yeah, it was dope, cool experience. Hopefully one day you guys can see it too. We'll figure that out. But how are you guys doing? What's up? How are y'all?
Good, man.
I'm not doing released a movie in Asia good.
Yeah,
I'm doing all right.
I mean, yeah, I'm not like film festival good, but
I mean after that, it's not like I got this show at Sal's.
Yeah,
I don't want to mention anything that I'm doing after that. But I'm doing well. I'm doing vaguely well.
Anything you say just seems like pale and embarrassing.
But Mazel Tov, that sounds cool, dude.
Thank you
yeah,
so
that's
much.
super
Appreciate
cool.
it.
Congratulations.
We're gonna have to work on something.
Yeah, well, of course.
We're gonna have to do something.
Yeah,
but y'all know these guys, Eric Abbenante, Chaz Carter. They're not special guests. They're regulars now. Y'all are like the niggas that come over all the time, and your mom's just kind of like, okay, it's 5 days in a row. Tell me to go home. Like, that's these two guys, man. We're just glad to have you guys back. Yeah, no special guests this week. We're just gonna have fun and discuss some things. I wanted to throw the trailer out there so you guys can check that out. What I wanted to talk about today was this term white famous, because we were just talking about Showtime. There's a new show on Showtime called White Famous. You've seen the pilot, right?
Yeah, it's excellent.
Have you seen the show yet?
No, I saw the trailer. That was the show. I know. I don't have Showtime.
Neither do I. Figure it out.
Oh, I mean,
the pilot's on YouTube, though. The pilot is on YouTube.
Is it on YouTube? All right, I can check it out. YouTube. The trailer looks very funny.
Yeah, it's a hilarious show. It stars Jay Farrow. I think the concept was kind of created by Jamie Foxx, and the whole thing is kind of like this concept of Jay Farrow's playing this comedian who, like us, does stand up at these different places and clubs and bars and all this kind of stuff. And so he's so talented, they wanted to make this transition to being in the mainstream on movies and TV and all this kind of stuff. But he has to do things that he might not necessarily want to do. And basically his agent is telling him he wants him to be white famous so they can get this money. And so it's a funny term, but it's not a made-up thing. Being white famous is a real thing. Yeah. We, as black people, we can think of a lot of black artists and comedians and actors, whatever, that we've seen be so popular, kind of like on the underground black level, and then they do this one project, and then they're on the mainstream with they're white famous now. So we've seen that a lot with with the actors that start off in like Spike Lee's movies and stuff like that. Now they're global superstars. They're the same way. I feel like Tyler Perry kind of did that too. Like a lot of black actors started off in his stuff. So like, what do you guys kind of think about this whole concept of like people of color who make film and do comedy and write and do these things have to kind of make their art in a way where it's consumable by the white majority? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I guess let me ask you two, first of all, what is it like to have black art, and then that's its own thing, and then what's considered the mainstream is pretty much white art, and that's another thing. What is it like to kind of pragmatically understand, these two can be separate? Does it affect how you create art? I'm obviously coming from a different point where a lot of my stuff would be considered mainstream. So,
right.
What is it like for you two, in that sense?
It's weird because it's like when I write jokes, sometimes I not only being black but of color, but also being gay, I oftentimes struggle with writing material and then not hoping to not think about or obsess about whether or not this is going to be palatable to the mainstream. I definitely have written jokes where I felt were more geared or pandered to a white audience because I felt like if I just made these jokes strictly about the black experience, that I was afraid of isolating them and stuff like that. It does affect the way you approach your material sometimes, but I think if you let it, I've gotten to a place where I just don't even care anymore in terms of I don't want to do that anymore. Because I feel like ever since I stopped thinking that way and stopped kind of writing my material geared that way to be more palatable to a main white audience, I feel like I've just gotten better and funnier as a comedian because I no longer allow myself I don't allow my creative process to be guided by the idea of having to pander to this crowd. It's like they're either going to like me or they're not.
Yeah.
This is just the way it is.
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. So you saying you now don't care. How do you think that translates to finally getting paid for this stuff?
Man, I know.
That's the thing.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword because we all know that the you can get paid, without having to do that. You can, but
do you get paid as much as you want to?
You don't get paid. We all know that you don't get paid as much as you want to when you're doing you. Yeah. They want you to do you, but they want you to do you in a packaged version of what they feel is more
it makes them
palatable to the rest of it.
Digestible, it's comfortable.
You can do you and be black, but don't be too black.
I often think about remember how Eddie Murphy, biggest superstar in the late 80s, early 90s. But those movies that he was in, where he was this blockbuster superstar, weren't necessarily characters where it had to be a black guy all the time.
No.
But besides maybe Boomerang and then the movie he directed, what was it with Richard? He was with Richard Pryor. I forget it. Is it Harlem Nights? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Besides those two, most of those movies Eddie Murphy was in, it was just kind of it didn't really have to be a black guy. He just needed to be a funny person.
Exactly.
And so, of course, they wanted Eddie Murphy to really be him. But he didn't really get to do it in just black movies. Coming to America, I wouldn't even say it's just a really black movie because of how silly it is.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's an amazing movie.
But it's just I feel like they kind of used Eddie Murphy as that, and then Eddie was the only black dude really getting paid at that time too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's even a lot of people even say they only put on one black comedian at a time and things like that. And so it's just
I feel like we're moving a bit.
I think it's different now, a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like we're definitely moving a little bit out of that mentality.
Yeah.
There was a time where it did seem like they were really only
5-10 years ago.
Yeah, they were only putting on one black comedian at a time or comedic actor at a time who blew the fuck up while everyone else was still doing their thing, but not nearly as much notoriety as that specific person.
Right.
But I feel like at the dawn of social media and more diversity in television and film, I don't know if I believe anymore that they're only just letting one person.
Right.
So
they kind of can't do that anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Because of the internet, it's like, oh, but this guy's really funny. Why aren't y'all looking at him? Because now, like, people, because I feel like it's kind of cool. Hopefully, things will start to change for people of color. Because I feel like the people now can kind of choose who's going to be famous next.
Yeah.
The people can kind of choose who's funny and who's not, and that kind of thing.
We're seeing a definite. I feel like we're definitely seeing a shift too, with all the like new television shows that are out.
The few new television.
The few, but more than 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're making some slow, small steps, but we're making steps.
Steps, yeah.
We're making steps because you got TV shows that are now not only completely written and produced by someone of color, but they're winning Emmys.
Yeah.
And 5 or 10 years ago, that wasn't happening. So I feel like we are definitely making some strides.
Right, it's crazy. Lena Waithe was the first black female to win, and it's just like it's 2017.
Yeah,
it is like her winning doesn't mean there weren't any funny black women writing comedy.
No.
It just means they weren't being recognized. And that sucks to think about people that were often, I guess, like passed over. And so what I love about Lena Waithe, I feel like Master of None was one of those shows where it wasn't really packaged as something like, oh, white people are going to like this. I think they just made a show.
And
it was really good.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when you see things like that, they'll start to realize that, why don't we just let them do what they do? You know what I'm saying?
Because those are the shows that are rising above the fray to be the most successful. Like shows like Insecure and Atlanta and Master of None. These shows were like, Survivor's Remorse on Stars.
Got canceled though.
I know, but this was a good show.
It was a great show.
And shows like that are like purely told through the narrative of the black experience.
Yeah.
Those shows are highly successful. With the exception.
Yeah.
But they're successful, and those shows are big examples that you don't necessarily have to do with the white way.
You don't have to pander.
You don't have to pander. Just do you and do your experience, and you'll find an audience because all these shows manage to find an audience.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that a lot of these shows, like these black experience shows, like you said, they're doing well. They're finding an audience. Yet Survivor's Experience and the Gerard Carmichael show. So these are shows that like were really well done. They were finding audiences.
Yeah.
But you see that black TV shows a lot of the times like throughout like they aren't given a leash. Yeah, they aren't given as much of a chance. Like Conan,
they allow you to kind of
5 years. Yeah.
And that's one thing. I'm glad you brought up the Carmichael show because I think the way the Carmichael show differed from a lot of black shows that are run by people of color, they really dug deep down into political discourse and conversations. Whereas, like, I love Insecure to death, but it doesn't really have any, I guess, like, the social things or like political things. But I think what it does do well is it just shows black people existing and just being black, and that's
normal,
dope. Yeah, just being normal
everyday people.
And that's dope because we don't get to see that.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Carmichael show, they would have these conversations like I was talking about in my monologue that would often make people feel uncomfortable. And so I think a show like that didn't really get the support and legs behind it because of what the subject matter.
Right.
And so I think oftentimes like people of color can make shows, but it's like, all right, be careful talking about that because you don't know how they're going to take it and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Well, I'd even counter that by saying the shows like Gerard Carmichael, they might have gotten the support, but because of the content matter that the goalposts were adjusted a little bit and say, okay, because you're dealing with that content matter, because it's a black show and we don't want it to work anyways, then you have to outperform by this much percentage.
Yeah.
And I think that's the situation that black shows are in, where they're in a tough position where you have to do way better than your average person. Like you look at how they used to treat like black quarterbacks. It's like if they threw a pick, it was like the end of the world.
Very short leash.
And so it's like, and it still kind of exists today. I mean, look at Colin Kaepernick.
Tyrod Taylor was even talking about that in Bills quarterback.
So
that's a really good point. And it's just like, but it's crazy, like you were saying, but you can see the success that comes from just letting it be raw. Like I feel like Atlanta was a great example of just a show being raw. Donald Glover had a writing room of just a couple people. It was him, his brother, cousin, he had some friends, and like I remember they had an episode where earn. The main character spends the day in like the holding place, like in Atlanta. They had a friend that went to jail, and so he helped write that episode, and it was raw, and it was like what really would go on. And just like a lot of times when you try to whitewash things, you're not gonna get that real point across because there's just so many underlying tones and layers and things like that. But it is crazy. Even though these kind of shows have success, for some reason it's still hard for you to pitch them and get them on. Like Girls Trip, international box office success. When they pitched it, the studio was just kind of like, what can we do to make this appeal to a broader audience? And when somebody says, how can we make this appeal to a broader audience, what does that really mean?
A wider audience.
Yes. And so, but here's the thing: you had another movie that it wasn't the same movie, even though people were trying to compare them. They weren't the same movie. It was just 4 women were in it again, and it was a comedy that was more for a white audience, and it completely bombed in the box office. And that was what was the movie with Scarlett Johansson?
Rough Night.
Rough Night.
Yeah,
it completely bombed. I didn't see the movie, so I can't say if it was bad or not. I won't go that far. But obviously there was something about it that didn't really appeal, even though it had a whole cast of white people in it. And so, but then you have this movie about 4 black women that go to a black festival in New Orleans. That's the blackest thing I've ever heard in my life, and it made over $100 million on the global. And so they try to say things like black stuff doesn't sell overseas or things like kind of that. I call BS because it's where we've continued to, I guess, break that ceiling and show that that's not the case. But for some reason, it's still hard to get these projects made. I don't understand it. It's like if I have money and I see something's working, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well, it's unfortunate that they just kind of label it. I think people actually do label it like this is a white project, this is a black project.
Right.
Whereas they should just have it based on meritocracy, because the 2 movies you were just referencing, Girls Trip and what was the other one?
Rough Night.
Rough Night, just from the trailer, it looked like it's poorly written. Yeah. Whereas Girls Trip, just from the trailer, it looks like it's well written. And so,
which it was.
I think the unfortunate thing is studios actually go in and they label these projects, and what that does is it eliminates a lot of black projects that actually would hold up to the test of the meritocracy. But it's like, we can only have 1 black project. We can only have a project that's half black. Or, you can't. If you had no limits and you based it off of the skill level and how good the project was,
right?
I feel like a lot more minorities would be given a chance. But I think over and over Hollywood's proven that's not the system, and then they kind of act like it is, and then every Oscars they like to talk about how they're more diverse and more of this, and then it's like, well, why aren't your movies more diverse? Why aren't you people working on them more diverse? It just seems like your award show.
And they try to act like it's some big phenomenon when a black movie or any other people of color make a movie that does well, like Moonlight wins an Oscar, Girls Trip makes all this money, Atlanta does well. They'd be like, oh, this is amazing, it's a phenomenon. No, like we've been telling you this works, you just won't commit to it. Yeah. So it's just like every couple of years when it happens again, you try to act like this is some big thing, and Hollywood loves patting itself on the back like it did like somebody a favor or something.
Well, they're only patting themselves on the back because it's like, it's a big deal because we set up the obstacles and made it so hard for you, and then they're patting themselves on the back for it. It's like, it's only a big deal because you made it a big deal. You made it hard as possible.
Right, and I laugh sometimes about all these people who were like celebrating Moonlight in the Oscars theater and clapping and all this kind of stuff. It's like, you're the reason why this movie only was able to be made for $1 million and they only had 20 days to shoot it and no one else would buy it. Like, this is all your fault.
And then not only that, the Oscars themselves were the fault that we didn't even talk about Moonlight winning the Oscar. We just talked about the flub with Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, so it's like Moonlight didn't even get its proper shine.
They didn't get their proper shine. Yeah.
It was the controversy was definitely outshined the moment of the Best Picture, and that almost never happens at an Oscars. Usually the Best Picture is the climax of the show.
Right.
And unfortunately for Moonlight, I don't think even a lot of people remember that they won. And that's just another example of like black projects always have to kind of go through this BS in Hollywood. And really, as the Oscars are celebrating itself in this thing, they're really tarnishing the moment for its premiere picture.
It's funny how that worked as kind of like a symbolism when the movie goes on. Let me ask you, Eric. Since we're black, you're not black. Have you ever written something, created something, whatever, and thought in the back of your head, how will people of color perceive this? Has that ever been like
Are we talking like in
I'm not
screenplays or in my
screenplays,
stand-up?
jokes, sketches, whatever. And I'm not talking about is this gonna offend anybody? Like, is it racist? It's just like, would this appeal to their audience? Have you ever
absolutely. Like, there's this. I remember a couple months into doing stand-up. There's this club in Inglewood called the J Spot. It's this famous black club. Mm-hmm. One of our friends, Brandon Bricks, he gets me a spot at the club.
Yeah.
And it's a really big club. There's over 100 people who are patrons who paid for their ticket to watch the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to him before, and he knows my set, and he's saying, don't say this because black people won't understand it. Like, so I was saying, I was doing a Bernie Sanders bit, and I would say trolling for women. And he's like, don't say trolling. Black people won't understand what trolling is. And so, like, I adjusted the wording, and it worked. But there was other stuff where, like, I talked about Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. And they loved it when I talked about Barack Obama. And then, literally, when I talked about Michelle Obama, half the black women in the audience, like, all the black women in the audience, like, just turned on me.
Damn.
Right? Because I didn't know how to walk the line. And it was just like, I wasn't very skillful in the joke with it. In retrospect.
Was that weird with Brandon being black? Was that weird, him having to, like, kind of tell you, like, this is going to work, this isn't, and that kind of thing? Because you probably never had gone through something like that.
Well, it's like, I guess in retrospect, thinking about it, like, I grew up in Utah, so walking into that building, I would be meeting more black people in that room than I'd ever seen in my entire life, really.
That's crazy.
And so it's
crazy.
Like, it is kind of a language barrier thing of like, we've had different experiences. I'm from Utah. I'm more middle class.
Yeah.
And this is Inglewood, so it is more middle class technically, actually.
Yeah.
But people wouldn't realize that it's actually not nearly as bad an area as you would think. But
right.
It's one of those things where you do want to make sure that your message gets across. That's the whole point of comedy, actually. And I actually, because I thought about connecting with the audience, there was a black kid who went on before me, and he didn't think about connecting with the audience, and they hated him, and he bombed, and then for me, I thought about connecting with the audience, and I did pretty good for that first half, and then it kind of...
Michelle Obama ruined it.
I got high fives from a couple black guys as I was walking off stage, but it was like, it was definitely like something where I felt like they aren't getting me yet, and part of it was I was a really young comedian, but part of it is like, I hadn't thought about how to translate my experiences outside of my perspective. And I think that's something that white people especially never have to think about.
Right.
And so that muscle needs to be trained more often.
Yeah, whereas with us, it's not just comedy, that's something we've had to do just to make it in this country, And it's not, so me and him being like, okay, let me structure this joke where like maybe white women will get it, is nothing, because we've had to have conversations where we've had to change things and do things differently just so white people will get it and white people understand, and we'll be able to assimilate to this, and that. So I guess with like comedy, it's nothing to do that because we do it all the time, basically.
Yeah, there's like a famous SAT test where it was like a psychological test where they had it in white American vernacular and then black American vernacular, and they tested it on both groups, and they found that, well, if you use black American vernacular and black subjects and things that words and subject matter that we might not know as white people, we would do significantly worse on tests.
Exactly.
And
ACTs,
what that does is it makes people look dumber just because you're not in your own thing.
ACTs and SATs are culturally biased, and it's not even maybe just black. It's even like low income white kids, because like when you have questions like, this house has 8 rooms and 4 bathrooms, and a poor white kid is like, what the hell? I don't know what, like, I don't have that.
Well, even deeper than that, like tablespoon and like other things like that. It's just like there's terms some people might use.
Figures of speech and statements.
The phrases and idioms are huge.
Right. I went to a private school, so I was able to code switch pretty easy, whereas I knew other kids that would struggle on SATs and ACTs because that's not how people talk in their homes. And so it doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means it's a different cultural thing.
And how this applies to the industry is like, the industry will see black people as dumb just because they don't know how to speak their language in the rooms.
Right.
And that's a big issue. Is like when you get into the rooms and you're talking contract litigation and these other things.
Yeah.
And ratings, they want to know that you know the language, and I feel like that's why black projects often don't get a chance, is because
we're not even speaking the same language.
Yeah, and they are trying to. It's like you got to figure out a way to combine the two things, and it's unfortunate because you're just saying to black people, "Oh, learn another language."
Yeah.
Because you really have to be bilingual.
Assimilate to me.
Yeah.
I have the power. I have the privilege. Assimilate to me. I'm not coming down.
And that's the constant experience. So it's like I'm even realizing this now as a white person. Like I only really have to know like my vernacular, and then I get to choose what's cool, and then I get to learn that. Whereas you just have to learn like everything that you can to move through.
The only black terms white people use are like dope and lit and all these little funny terms. Whereas we have to learn like complete systems that you guys are creating and things like that. It's a lot different. So Chaz, favorite white movie that speaks to you? Favorite white movie?
Like with a white.
All white. It's all white people, directed by white people, written by white people, show, movie, whatever.
That speaks to me?
Yeah, like that is like your show. Like, and I feel like every black person had like a white show or white movie that they just love. For me, it was How I Met Your Mother. Them white people was amazing. I loved it.
Man. Probably the Goonies is all.
The Goonies are white. That's a good one. For me, like white projects, probably like How I Met Your Mother. Probably let's see, Workaholics was dope. Workaholics was dope.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump.
Office Space.
Office Space, okay, that's a good one.
The
Office. The Office is all white people.
Yeah.
That's a great one. So it's just like we do have our little white culture things that we like, that we watch in secret. We don't want y'all knowing we watch all of it, but
it's not so secret.
White music though, yeah. I don't really have.
I listen to rock music.
You do listen to rock music.
I do listen to rock music. That I'm fine with white music.
Anything like maybe like Maroon.
But I also love hip hop, and my music taste is pretty.
Anything I listen to I love Maroon 5. They're dope.
I don't even really fuck with Maroon 5. It's
like older Maroon 5.
Because I was born in the late 80s and I grew up in the 90s, and so like my musical taste is mostly geared at the 90s. So when I do listen to rock music, it's mostly 90s alternative.
Okay, I see you.
Yeah, that's why he's got good hair for like hip hop and headbanging.
Yeah.
This is multi-purpose.
You can bridge both worlds, all continents.
That's dope. Favorite black movie, Eric?
Well, actually, I was thinking, so you chose a black TV show. Could I choose the Boondocks? Like
that's a good.
That's like Black South Park to me. I really like that show.
Yeah, it is.
I wish it could have gone on more. You know.
Yeah, 4 seasons.
I mean, I don't know if this counts as a black book, but I always like the Three Musketeers.
That's a black book.
It was written by Black Arthur,
really?
Alexandre Dumas.
What? Three Musketeers written by a nigga?
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah, Alexandre Dumas.
You must be thinking about the Migos, bro.
No, Alexandre Dumas is a black guy, so I don't know if that counts, but that's a guy. You guys should check out Art Tatum. He's the best pianist in the world. No one knows about him. He's a black guy, jazz pianist. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool like black stuff throughout the world.
Okay. All right, well, black dude wrote the Three Musketeers. That's pretty cool. But we'll be right back. We're going to have a little commercial for probably my favorite show on the internet right now. It's called Blunts and Brunch with Arthur Hamilton, hosted by Arthur Hamilton. Y'all check this out.
Dang, that's what I should have said. Blunts and Brunch.
No! When he whips it out, but you weren't ready. Oh, shit. So you be getting them as mysterious dick pics, huh?
Listen, it was...
getting them unsolicited bratwursts in your DMs.
Oh my gosh, one can only wish. Are you kidding me? Nobody sends me anything. I even have a fucking joke about it. They still don't send it to me. The only people that fucking send it live in like Pakistan or like fucking Turkmenistan. Like, I can't do shit with that. You know what I mean?
Dropping missiles in your DM.
Shout out to Pakistan! Alright, that was a little promo clip for Blunts and Brunch with Arthur Hamilton, hosted by Arthur Hamilton. He's a funny dude. He actually he had to go up after Dave Chappelle Thursday. And he did his thing though.
I heard.
He did his thing. He went up.
He followed Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that?
That's the correct. Like I told him, he'll always be able to remember that for the rest of his life.
And he literally went on, like, some people say they went on, like, they followed him and they were like 13 after.
He was
the next one. After Dave Chappelle, he was walking out.
Yeah. He went up after the greatest, probably, comedian of the modern era. I gotta give him some respect for that. Yeah. That was dope.
And Chaz was on the first episode. So.
Yeah. And Chaz, you're at the Comedy Store this coming up week, right?
Yeah, I'll be at Crack 'em Up on Thursday.
Yeah, come support my boy Chaz. Yeah.
So really quick, can you guys just quickly talk
Hopefully
about...
not following Dave Chappelle.
Right. Hey, Dave, it was cool you came this week. 2 weeks in a row.
I don't know, man. I would love to go before you go on.
Yeah, going before him was, going but like 3 or 4 people before him was dope. Like that was cool.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Just really quick, Crack 'em Up. Do you guys want to talk about like how like this white famous thing of like how hard it's like?
Yeah, I mean, Crack 'em Up's cool because like it was like that was one of my first times doing a mostly like black audience or room, and so it was dope saying things and making little quips and stuff like that. And I didn't really have to explain much, and they got a lot more laughs because it was just like y'all get it. Like you kind of came up the same way as I did. Like I was able to talk about like certain things like Suge Knight and Tyrese and things like this that they just got. Like I didn't have to like put too much into explaining. So Crack 'em Up is dope, especially for comedians of color to be able to just be themselves.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a room. Yeah, it's definitely a room where you feel like you don't really have to. There's no pandering.
There's no pandering at all. It's just you.
Yeah. And I think that's like the big lesson of this is like I learned like pandering doesn't work.
Doesn't work at all.
Everyone's really smart. It's just people can smell it, the inauthenticity on you.
They know what they know. People can sense when you're trying to gain other people's approval. Because the point is to gain people's approval simply by them respecting your work, not because you are like eagerly trying to say something that will make them like you.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like Crack 'em Up is definitely it's taught me a lot, aside from being able to just be more comfortable in my stand-up. But I feel like Crack 'em Up has given me more freedom to just talk about whatever sort of black reference I want to make in front of any audience in there. And it's my job as a comedian to figure out how to make them get it. Yeah. Without me resorting to have to like pander and like turn that black reference into a white reference so they get it. It's like, no, I'm gonna say this black reference. I'm just gonna figure out a way that you understand it.
Looking like Hillary with the and the hot sauce in her bag. Hey Hillary, we know you too damn old.
Because black people do this.
Right. Those memes were so funny. She was like, I also listened to Lemonade. Like, get out of here.
You can tell she is really black though, because the hot sauce thing was like this big. It's like that's like half a meal.
Right.
No. A third of that bottle was gone by the end of the burrito.
Yeah. So we were talking about diversity. There's one thing I noticed in my homeboy Abbenante, Al B, you're the best. He sent me this article, and it was basically showing how people of color, we don't complain about white movies or white shows not having diversity unless it sucks. And I was like, I thought about it, and I was like, we really don't. Because I was watching Stranger Things, I was like, there's more white people in this thing than a Whole Foods parking lot. Like, there ain't nobody in there that ain't black besides, what's his name, Lucas. Yeah. And so I was like, and his family. But it's just like, that show was really, really white. And it's in Hawkins, Indiana, so of course. But it's like most shows and movies that are very white, we don't think about it. Like, think about, and I started thinking, I was like, wow, I never complained about diversity in the Jason Bourne movies. I think those are dope. I never complained about diversity on Friday Night Lights, my TV show. That was mostly white. True. But it's just like, but these trash movies, I'm not going to name any because that's not cool. But these lot of trash movies or TV shows that aren't that good or really corny that might just be all white. You're just kind of like, hey, why can't y'all throw a black person in there or something like that? Because I think it just comes from that, like, I'm entertained, so I'm not even thinking about this right now.
Well, I think a big part of it goes to that other study you posted that they found that like less than 5% of the TV writers are black.
Right.
And so it's like if all the shows were like amazing, you wouldn't care as much about diversity. 'Cause at least like they're putting up amazing work.
There's a lot of bad stuff.
But there's a lot of bad stuff. If there's gonna be a lot of bad stuff on television, it's like at the very least you should have the diversity part, right? But more importantly, there would be less bad stuff on television if you had diverse people in the writers' room,
Right.
in the producer's room,
Right.
creating the show. But they don't.
Right.
So it's one of those things like you can't complain about diversity with a good TV show because it also the argument really doesn't have a lot of bite to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do it to a terrible show, it really has a lot of bite to it. It's like, well, yeah, it's like, and of course they could have done better.
Because it's crazy when you think about it. The majority of things on TV aren't that good, and the majority of movies that come out in the box office don't make a profit. I didn't even know that. So it's just like the things that do rise to the top are actually really good. Because a lot of movies don't make money. That's crazy to me. And I think if diversity was pushed more, I think we wouldn't have those problems. Like, look at the anticipation for Black Panther. It's crazy. Like, niggas is throwing on dashikis just waiting for this movie to come out. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's because we've never had a movie to this scale that's like fantasy and sci-fi, whereas white people get a movie like that every year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So it's interesting.
Well, we looked at the timeline of it, like in the 70s and the 80s and even a little bit in the 90s, there was an uptick of like black TV shows, black writers.
Yeah.
And now, the past 20 years, there's been a historic low.
Yeah.
In minorities participating and being allowed to participate in creating and writing TV shows.
Right.
And then coincidentally, the past 20 years, especially the last 10 years, has been kind of a dark ages of entertainment.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of like TV comedies and just comedy in general. Like we haven't had as much because TV, you're not allowing people to be diverse. Comedy, the world isn't allowed to be as diverse as it used to be.
Yeah.
And so all these areas suffer when you aren't accessing the full talent pool. And it's not a true meritocracy because that means you're not picking based on skill level, you're picking based off other stuff. And then that's when the art form really starts to suffer.
Okay. That's dope. Any last words?
No, it's pretty much on the
Hire black people.
Yeah.
If we have learned nothing, that would be my 3 words.
Well, just hire them when they're the best for the job, and guess what? Usually they are a lot more than you think they are. So let them in the interview room, and they'll probably surprise you and outdo the person that you're interviewing beforehand.
That's oftentimes the problem we don't even get in these rooms. It's so hard to just do that in general. That's why I love the people like Ava DuVernay and Issa Rae and just and a lot of others. Will Packer that are opening up like opportunities for so many people that are on the lower tiers to come up and be able to do their project. Kevin Hart's doing the same thing, so it's really cool to see that once one black person gets their opportunity, they try to find a way to build a bridge for the rest, so that way it's a lot easier. Because like when Oprah's network, when a black woman is running a network, it's a lot easier to get in those rooms if you are a black artist, whereas an NBC or a Fox or a CBS, you have to go through a lot of red tape. And because like I talked to one black writer of a TV show, and he was telling me how like when you're a person of color pitching to basically mostly all older white men who have the money that are going to put the money behind this, you basically have to pitch to them. First you have to make them understand it and make them realize what would be the point, who would actually watch it, why it's important, and how is this all going to work. You have to make them understand that, and then you have to pitch the concept of the show. Whereas he said a white counterpart can pitch a show and they're just like, oh, okay, cool, because they see themselves in it. And so the more people we have in these positions of power, then we can do these pitches and things like. I feel like there's some things I know I couldn't pitch to a white person that if I said 3 words to Oprah, she'd just get it. But the thing is, how many Oprahs do we have running networks? 1. So that's the part of the problem.
You need to change the power dynamic.
Yeah, change the power dynamic. But yeah, this has been a great episode. Talking about being white famous. I would love to be white famous one day because that means lots of coins. So that'd be dope. This is I've been Niles Abston, Chaz Carter, Abbenante. You guys got any shows coming up that the people can support?
Crack them up.
Oh yeah, we on Crack 'em Up. Yeah.
I got nothing. Check out everything on Channel 310, the Podium, Blunts and Brunch, and this show, Secret Black People Meeting. Check it out.
Yeah, go watch all the past episodes. This is episode 8, so we got like almost 8 hours of bingeable material just off this one show. So go back and check it out. See you guys next week.
Right now, Niles Abston!
Get your black ass up there! Channel 310. Nigga, always dancing. Always dancing. Always dancing. Hey.
Holy
I ain't gon' tell, I ain't gon' tell, I ain't gon' tell. Keep it on the low, keep it on the low. I ain't gon' tell, I ain't gon'